In today's NRM Parliamentary Caucus meeting held at State House Entebbe, the NRM Parliamentary Caucus passed two resolutions. Resolution number 1, the caucus resolved to support the UPDF Amendment Bill as presented in Parliament by the Minister of Defense and Veterans Affairs in fulfillment of the Supreme Court ruling on the same and following our earlier resolution on the same. 2, the caucus also resolved to support the Private Members Bill aimed at amending the Political Parties and Organizations Act to set a condition precedent for all political parties to be members of IPOD as a condition precedent for accessing funding from government. We did not, as caucus, proceed into the details of handling the bill clause by clause, because caucus had already been earlier on agreed. But we have also agreed that in handling the bill as presented, our frontline commander will be the principal legal advisor of government constitutionally, that is the learned Attorney General. So if there are issues, we shall cross the bridge when we get there tomorrow. For now, we have agreed to support the bill as presented. First and foremost, we must agree that the Supreme Court indicated that civilians can be tried in the military court under exceptional circumstances. That must be the key word. Under exceptional circumstances, implying any civilian who voluntarily acquires a firearm, which is a preserve of the armed forces, illegally, without taking advantage of the window in the law for a civilian to acquire a private arm legally, and proceeds to commit an offense, that particular civilian will be culpable for trial under the prescribed exceptional circumstances in the UPDF Amendment Bill if passed into law. Cattle rustling means there is a civilian who has voluntarily acquired a firearm illegally, and he proceeds to village B and uses the firearm illegally acquired and voluntarily for purposes of, first of all, terrorizing the villagers. Then later on, he or she takes away the what? Yeah, that is what constitutes, in my simple understanding, that is what would amount to a cattle rustling. But if your cows come to my kraal, that may be theft. That is different. It is different from an armed man coming to your village and grabbing your cows forcefully when he or she is armed. So what courts will now interrogate is, first of all, that firearm you have, did you acquire it legally or illegally? If it was illegally acquired, you have voluntarily acquired what is a preserve of the armed forces. So that means you have committed offense number 1. But you have proceeded with that particular weapon to go and cause mayhem with intent of grabbing people's cows or cattle. I am talking about you and me, a civilian who proceeds to acquire a gun illegally. That is the first wrong. Then you proceed to commit an offense with a gun acquired illegally and voluntarily, while knowing that under the law, you can also acquire legally. There's a window created. But for you, you have suspended everything. The exception under the law, off. You get it illegally, you commit an offense. In our opinion, that would be construed to form an exceptional circumstance, because ordinarily a gun is supposed to be held by members of the armed forces. But for you, you have bypassed the window of owning it legally as a civilian. You acquire it illegally, commit an offense. So I think it is clear. Nobody should be telling Ugandans that all civilians will be tried under the UPDF Act. That is wrong. The Supreme Court of Uganda was very, very clear that civilians primarily should be tried in the civilian court. If you are trying a civilian in the military court or tribunal, it should only be under exceptional circumstances, and those exceptional circumstances, as proposed, are contained in the bill that will be debated with effect from tomorrow. First of all, there is no hurry. As you are aware, there was a ruling of the Supreme Court of Uganda. And in that ruling, the Supreme Court also came out with what I would call directives or observations. Those observations or directives contained in the ruling of the Supreme Court requires Parliament to amend the UPDF Act in order for us to conform to the Supreme Court ruling. What Parliament is doing is fulfilling its constitutional obligation under Article 79 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, which primarily mandates Parliament to make laws. First of all, this bill is not all about exceptional circumstances. The bill is about the welfare of our brothers and sisters, fellow countrymen and women who have joined the UPDF. The issue of pension, the issue of gratuity, the issue of retirement, the issue of those under the reserve force. So the bill is not only about the exceptional circumstances. The bill also will introduce members who qualify to be judges or enroll advocates to be appointed to preside over military court-martials. The bill will also grant a right of appeal from the military court-martial to the civilian courts, among others. The bill will also establish exceptional circumstances where a civilian can be tried in the military court. And I have told you that if Obua voluntarily and illegally acquires a gun, which is a preserve of the armed forces, and he proceeds to commit an offense, those are now two wrongs that we must. That is what will constitute what we call an exceptional circumstance. And those circumstances that would fall under exceptional circumstances are already proposed in the bill that will be handled tomorrow at 10 a.m. So let's cross the bridge when we get there. Just take it from me as the chairperson of caucus that we have agreed to support the bill as presented by the Minister of Defense and Veteran Affairs in fulfillment of the Supreme Court ruling. And the Supreme Court ruling was equally clear on issues of exceptional circumstances. I don't want us to move into that, but I have here quotes I can make from the ruling, because I hear there are people who are saying, no, Supreme Court did not mention anything to do with exceptional circumstances. It agreed that civilians can be tried in the military courts or tribunal, but only under exceptional circumstances. And those exceptional circumstances have been proposed in the UPDF Amendment Bill that will be considered by Parliament tomorrow.